Welcome back everyone, and to our new attendees, a big hello to you. Time now to begin our third and final session for today, focusing on greener futures. Kicking us off, we have the wonderfully eloquent Emerson Sutton, who's 13 years old and is the advisor to the young mayor of Lewisham. He came into the studio yesterday to tell us his story and to share his thoughts on how we can tackle climate change.
Good morning. My name is Emmerson Sutton and I am 13 years of age. I attend Trinity Church of England Secondary School in Lee, and I am incredibly happy there. I was born in the London Borough of Lewisham, and I am proud to be a member of a community that is culturally diverse. Having respect for one another is the key to successful community cohesion. Differences are good. Learning what makes each of us unique brings forth new concepts and enriches the Borough of Lewisham immensely. It was at my primary school that the UN Conventions on the Rights of the Child were embedded in all of us. I learned about the articles and the rights and responsibilities of children and adults alike. Brindley Green Primary School is a Gold Star rights respecting school, and I was part of that prestigious club. I later went on to learn about the sustainable goals and what an impact they have on every individual. The London Borough of Lewisham has an elected young mayor. At the tender age of 9, I attended my first Young Advisors group meeting. Despite being the youngest advisor there, I was given a chance to articulate my thoughts and understand the process of politics and effective, active young citizenship. An equal opportunity is given to all ambitious advisors to engage with department heads and service managers. I have sat around many tables and have politely scrutinized their work, visions and sincerity. As an advisor, I have frequently suggested alternative ideas for them to consider. Having young representation on panels and boards ensures creative longevity. The world has pressing issues that we cannot overlook and ignore any longer. The ever-changing climate is causing chaos around the world. People are losing their homes because of severe weather conditions. We are repeatedly showing a lack of care and respect towards our home, planet Earth. Lockdown has allowed us all to take stock of our lives and really address what is important. Now is the time for young people to make their mark about climate change and green issues. Each year, the British Youth Council and the Make Your Mark campaign gives all young people aged between 11 to 18 the unique opportunity to take part in a national decision-making process. It is us who will go on to be the next opinion formers and leaders of the future. As many young people are now considering career options, take a glance at the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There is so much opportunity to redevelop cities and communities and make them safe, resilient, inclusive and sustainable for people. Imagine being involved from inception on projects like that. Imagine designing a shopping centre near you. All very plausible. Lewisham has many rising polymaths, very able students across a spectrum of subjects, from insulating homes to transport and the environment. Young people can help drive the changes forward. So the next steps are crucial. Science is not lying. We certainly do not need any more reports. Leadership and assistance from the government would be helpful. Interventions and a pledge to act from every CEO of the top 100 companies would certainly ensure that the government have it on their things to do list. Social media companies like Twitter and newspapers like the Telegraph are key in explaining facts and information and circulating it to a worldwide audience. We have influencers like the Queen and Marcus Rashford who have more popularity with the public and can initiate progressive and quick responses from a chain of people. I will be listening and watching the Queen's speech very closely this year. I am an academy football player with Queen's Park Rangers, and now is the time for all academy players around the world to be ambassadors both on and off the pitch on this very important matter. It will also be announced soon that I will represent my borough on the London Youth Games Board. The 33 representatives will be key decision makers across the world of sport. These are very interesting times indeed. My friends in the creative arts world are a phone call away and are also very keen to make long-lasting changes for us all. While serendipity has played a masterful hand in my life so far, it really has been the encouragement by outstanding professionals who have taken the time to listen, explain, chaperone and counsel me onto greater things. My comprehension and knowledge across so many areas is underpinned by someone taking the time to enlighten me. I have been under the influence of Lewisham's finest from birth. Time is a precious commodity, and I am able to identify those people who spared the time and invested in me. I will continue to collaborate with amazing educators from all over the globe. They will enter and exit my life at different stages. Time is approaching to know who some of these formidable people are and what they mean to me. Individually, these people are my true influencers. Collectively, but unbeknown to each other, they have helped to positively shape my life. Young people can seem inconclusive, but with the right tools and mentors working alongside us, we can change this perspective forever. Together, we are more, so let us continue to respect one another in order to achieve our sustainable goals.
Huge thanks to Emerson there for giving us his thoughts, and I hope you'll join me straight away in feeling some positivity about the future with the probable leader of tomorrow expressing his respect for sincerity, knowledge and polite scrutiny. Very refreshing. Emerson now joins us in the virtual studio alongside Belinda Gordon, Strategy Director at Green Alliance, and John Bromley, Legal and General's Head of Clean Energy, all together to discuss how we can get sustainability to the top of the agenda. So welcome Emerson, Belinda and John. Thank you for joining us. Well, Emerson spoke there of a whole host of angles to tackle this huge issue, from business commitments to young people being involved in decision making, to role models using their influence to drive the agenda. And he said quite firmly, we know the science now, we don't need any more reports. Belinda, we're at the stage now where the overwhelming consensus of credible scientists is that this is happening. We need to act now. Do we as a society, do we still need more awareness? Do we need gentle nudging, or are we at the stage where we need to grab the bull by the horns and make some serious changes?
I think we're at the stage where beyond gentle nudging. I mean, I think increasing awareness will help, but actually we're at the position where we've got all the evidence, we even know most of the solutions, and we just need to make them happen. And I believe that requires really strong leadership from government. And to get that, we do need pressure from individuals, real leadership from business as well. But we need government to put in place those policies that allow us to make the changes, to live more sustainably, and to do that easily. You know, it shouldn't be hard work.
So our roles as individuals now, do you think as individuals we can't make the difference ourselves? Our roles should be to push policymakers to drive the agenda, to show them that we care.
I think we can make a bit of a difference ourselves, and you know, we all make choices about how we spend our money, and those send signals into the system about what's important to us. But I personally think that that alone is not enough, and that we do need changes to the system that allow us to make the right choices easily. So, for example, you know, to travel, walking and cycling, you know, you need government policies, you need local authorities to invest in the infrastructure so that those become the easier options than driving in your car for short journeys. And we are hoping for a big announcement from the Prime Minister this week on sort of climate change and nature, and I hope we'll start to see the beginning of that sort of massive government investment and new policies that we need.
And John, do you think it's going to be a government-led thing to make the change, or does big business play its part as well?
Yeah, so I think it's fundamental that everybody plays a part in this transformation. We need to go at real pace. We need to take a lot of actions, and it would be a risk, and it would be a real disappointment if we stand in line and wait for somebody to set the policy and the plan before we decide what action we might take, and then what services and products and changes emanate from that. It's 5 years since the Paris Agreement, so we've agreed for 5 years. There is an imperative to act and act quickly. I would look to COP26, and that's in November next year. Now, by November next year, we'll be 1 year into 10 years in which we need to take decisive action. So I hope at COP26 we'll be updating on work in progress and actions underway, and not arriving in November with, yes, it's laudable to have more ambitions and commitments, but we need to have at least as many actions and elements that are already work in progress. That is not done by government alone. That is everybody acting together. And I'd finish just by saying that in the UK in particular, we could sort of separate, roughly speaking, some of the emissions that we really need to cut, and fairly equally they're between where we live and our buildings and cities. It's how we move around and our transportation. It's in our business and industries, and it's in how we use and generate power. And across there, I think we can easily see the importance of individual actions and choices, the choices that businesses and sort of investors need to make, and also the key imperative for government and those with power to set the direction and set the pace, frankly, for what we need to do.
And speaking of everyone needing to play their part, as you did there, John, we've got a poll for you. So everybody watching this feed, we'd like you to participate. And the poll is, what is the most sorry, I just have to check my eyes for a very small read. I'm sure you can see it on your screens better than I can see it here. What is the most the greener future? I'm terribly sorry. I think I need glasses to read the very tiny monitor in the back, but I can see that people are answering this already, and it's 50-50, so please do check out the poll on your screen. I'm sure, I don't know, Emerson, can you do me a favour? Can you read the poll on your screen? Is it visible to you?
I don't think so, no.
No, okay, everybody at home, you're going to have to do your own work there. Who is the most responsible for ensuring a greener future? Is it government, business, or the individual? There we go. Thank you very much for that. A hot topic. And Emerson, I know as an individual and your group of friends, you're very active and you're very interested in tackling climate change. You see it as a really big issue. But you're there in meetings with policymakers. And I'm sure there are issues that come up, that are kind of more time pressing. They're just things that feel more urgent. Is climate change and tackling green issues a kind of a topic that comes up time and time again? And how much emphasis or how much weight do people actually take to this? Do they see it as an urgent issue?
I would say that climate change comes up a lot. It definitely comes up a lot because we all want to tackle it and we all want to do something about it, but nothing happens, and that's the problem, because we need something to happen. And I think that a quote that I found, which was very interesting, was from a guy called Benjamin Disraeli, and it said, "There are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics." And I think from that quote, we can pick out that we have the statistics, we have the stats, we have the things that we need to know, but we need to eradicate the lies and we need to really do something about it, because if we don't, then it's simply nothing will happen. You need something to happen to make a chain reaction, and clearly we haven't done anything, which is something we need to do about.
And I think if you ask the general public what they thought of politicians, you might get a few disaffected people. Potentially, I think the words sincerity might not crop up, whereas it's important to you, Emerson. Do you find that when you're dealing with politicians, do you find that they say one thing and do another, or do you find they're actually listening, or what is stopping them from acting in some situations?
I think what's stopping them is obviously the climate we're in now. And what I mean by that is obviously coronavirus. Obviously, no one expected a pandemic. I didn't think anyone would. And obviously, it's a big issue, and it's something that takes a lot of people. And I guess to that extent, coronavirus is much bigger than climate change at the moment because of the deaths that it's making and because of the impact that it's having on our lives. I would say that I wouldn't take everything that politicians say and hold it to ransom, because obviously with the pandemic they have stuff on their hands and they have stuff to do. So I would say later in the year, or later when coronavirus has finished, that's when we can really start knuckling down and really start adding pressure, because that's all we can do at the moment.
And Belinda, do you think that's that's the problem with climate change? It's such a big issue, and it always feels like it can be pushed to later. Is that the case, or should we be seeing the way we're changing our lives, the way air pollution has dropped due to the way we don't commute as much at the moment? Should we be seeing this as an opportunity to lead with more environmentally friendly changes to our lives that we've already made anyway? I think we've lost your sound, Belinda, very briefly. We can't. You can hear us obviously, but unfortunately we can't hear you. I'll turn until we get it back. I'll turn to John with the same question. Do you think we should be using this pandemic as an opportunity to keep some of the changes that are more environmentally friendly and change the way we work and live?
Yeah, so I do. I think that nobody would wish for more lockdowns, but I think what's so important with climate action is that when we see, it's funny that when we actually see real impact and we're able to engage more with what is a huge topic, and it could be, when we had sort of we saw plastic bottles that were floating in the Arctic. We saw the devastating wildfires, which in Australia, these were just prior to the COVID pandemic really taking hold. And then there was some pretty serious flooding in the UK. Straight off the back of those, we went into lockdown. And possibly during that period, and reflecting on some of those wider climate events, we had time to walk in our local parks, engage with our own community a lot more, and possibly realise that actually a lot of what we want in life, and a lot of what the quality of life can be, it is actually always around us. We spend a lot of our time sort of commuting through it, or past it, or away from it. So I do think that COVID and our experience of it will have made an impact. But I think most importantly, as we talk about recovering from COVID, we're talking about, how do we economically recover? And we need to inspire people. I'm inspired by Emerson. He is clearly articulating to me that his expectation of a future and the future of young people are careers and jobs with purpose and more meaning around not just how we survive economically, but the sort of environment and the world that we live in, a more inclusive world. So, I think, we don't, Emerson's, I'm sure I don't have to speak for him, he won't be thanking us for the mortgage that we're taking out now to recover from the COVID disaster. We're taking out a mortgage now. There's a generation that will pay for that, and they will not thank us for spending that money and indebting ourselves to build back what we were doing before and continue with the same polluting practices, etc. So, I think it's a real moment, and we now have, luckily for the UK, I think we have 9 months in which to now look forward to COP26 and, some hope and an opportunity for us to actually put down a statement and a marker that we're going to do something about this and take the action which is being demanded.
Off the back of that, I'm going to try Belinda with one more question before I move on to some questions that are coming in from our viewers. Belinda, John mentioned that, talking about economy there, and I think it used to be the case where you thought you could either be green or you could get the best value. But is that necessarily the case? What are the benefits of a greener economy, of a greener society?
Yeah, I think we've done huge amounts of analysis which shows that, investing in sort of a greener future can really tick the economic box as well as the environmental box. For example, we did some analysis showing that having a more circular economy where resources are reused creates way more jobs than just putting our rubbish in landfill, and those are jobs spread across the UK, not just in the southeast. So I think there's lots of evidence that actually that it's really possible to build a much greener economy, and there's also evidence that that's what the public want. That coming out of the pandemic, as we hopefully will with vaccines, people don't want to return to business as usual. They want to take this chance to put us on a different economic trajectory, which is much more sustainable and addresses the climate impacts that we're all starting to feel, flooding and heat waves, and even the emergence of new diseases as sort of more of nature is destroyed. So I think there's a real opportunity to sort of tick those boxes.
Yeah, you could be sustainable and have a good economy. I'm going to turn now to one question. I'm going to ask Emerson. The question is, apart from tax and monetary incentives, how can individuals be encouraged to be more active for a greener future? And I know you mentioned their influences from quite a diverse selection. You talked about Marcus Rashford and the Queen. But what are things, apart from getting a celebrity, or what are your thoughts on what will make the individual want to be more greener?
I think it comes with incentives, and what I mean by that is making it fashionable for the customer. So, for example, someone may like design, or someone may like clothes, and we could maybe make a green clothing idea or something towards that effect. So I think making it fashionable to the customer and making it relatable to them gets the best out of them. Because if it's like giving a child a sweet, they will always want one, but you'd have to make them work to do it, whether it's chores or something that warrants the sweet. And I think that's what we need to do with climate change. We need to have it as an incentive, and with that incentive you get a reward, whether it's clothes or something that you may like.
And do you think that works, John, in terms of on a business level? Is it more about the carrot than the stick, the faming rather than the shaming, or do we need a bit of a balance?
I mean, the first thing to say is that if you've got a long-term view and you want to be a sustainable business, we're clearly aware of the risks of continuing our business as usual activity. And at the moment, that puts us on course for 3.7, 3.8 degrees Celsius temperature increases. So that shouldn't really be an investment strategy for anybody. But whilst there are all the risks discussed, this is an immense and a huge investment opportunity. And we can talk about investment in financial terms, and the opportunity for us to create new industries and businesses and the careers that go with them, to live more sustainably. But investing is typically about choices. And I think as individuals choosing to walk rather than jump in the car, it's investing some time, and actually I'm going to benefit in my health and my well-being. And I'm actually going to be investing in protecting the planet. And for me, that comes down to other key elements of what do we value. We need to value our natural assets a lot more. We need to sort of understand what the wider benefits economically are of our amenities, and having good, looking after nature, which I think, as Belinda touched on earlier, with the number of jobs that can be created in restoring nature, and that can provide carbon sinks. And then the other financial metric around cost, we need to seriously attach cost to pollution and to carbon emissions. And really, in a nutshell, I guess it's a little bit of a re-engineering, but it's at least a different perspective on what we use in our current sort of financial system and investment system to measure what we should invest in, how we should invest, and what outcomes we could generate from that.
So a lot of what you talked about, John, there is just giving the public more information, and it takes me back to the way the government have have made the scientific advisors, the medical experts, prominent in informing the public about the decision making in relation to COVID, whether you agree with it or not. There are, you know, experts there who are, you know, giving us the information so that we can then act based on that. Do you think, Belinda, do you think the government has the right group of people in relation to climate change, helping them, advising them what's useful, and then giving that information to the public? Or do we need a similar way that we've had, you know, the medics in for COVID? Do we need another panel for green issues?
I think the you know, there's a huge amount of scientific expertise being applied to this at the international level and at the government level. I don't think that's the issue. I think there was also an exercise done recently called the UK Climate Assembly, where 100 people from across the country, kind of representative of all walks of life, became this assembly who took evidence from experts and came up with their own recommendations about what they think government should do on climate change. So ordinary people who weren't particularly well informed. And there's some really amazing stuff in there. And I think information and awareness raising is part of it. But I think that's only ever going to take you so far, and only ever going to reach a proportion of the population who are kind of motivated to act in this way anyway. I think you do need more fundamental changes, such as changes to the tax system, such as sort of different criteria for investing in infrastructure, you know, to actually change the system. I think, you know, a certain proportion of the population are going to be motivated on these things, but you know, we would need everyone to change and, you know, reduce consumption and things like that. And work that Green Alliance has done shows that people are willing to change their behaviours, but they want to see leadership from government and business so that they know that the changes they're making build up into something more significant. And that's why I think it isn't enough to just sort of pass information on to people, that actually you have to, you know, change the incentives, as Emerson has said, and change the system so that the easy, cheap, sensible thing to do is also the green one.
Another great question we've got in, you know, when you talk about leadership and government making the changes inevitably, the question is, how can we make government work together to solve the climate crisis rather than the never-ending focus on conflict between political parties? Obviously, in a cycle of potentially 5 years, you know, people need to get elected. They may need to make popular decisions rather than good decisions. So, Emerson, do you have an opinion on how we can get people, you know, to work together for the long-term prosperity of our society rather than short-term popularities?
I think something that would be good is if that both parties or people from many of politics, they all come together to make one group, and that group can tackle, let's say, for example, climate change. Because there is no point, and I do agree, there is no point having only one party in charge, and they may make one decision, and it's not a good one. And I think if we have a plethora of views, it just builds up to something that's greater and builds up to something that tackles every single individual thing.
I've got another question. Thank you, Emerson. Another question coming in. It's more specific to the automobile industry. So we keep hearing about all cars becoming electric, but I don't see that happening. That shift happening. What do you think the barriers are to that shift? And are we talking about infrastructure, John, or, you know, what's stopping everybody going electric at the moment?
I think right at this point in time, it's a lot to do with cost of the vehicles. I think it's possibly, as we come out of COVID, you know, many people in their financial position may not be looking to change their car. So there's sort of the timing and the imperative. We're just at the beginning of seeing all of the major manufacturers now, you know, fully engaging and putting themselves on track to embrace this revolution. And, you know, the benefit of more production, more investment, and more technology is that we would expect and anticipate the cost to fall, but the actual efficacy of those vehicles to improve. And yes, I think there is a wider challenge around making sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate. And I think this is a wider theme across all of this agenda is how do we keep it inclusive? Because here people talk about a race to net zero. We can't have winners who are able to buy electric cars that are expensive now, plug them in on their own driveway, and then they're fine. We ultimately don't win this race until the last person crosses the line. So we need to make sure we fully make it fully inclusive. So I think the infrastructure part of solving the challenge, how do we provide charging for people who don't have a driveway? Equally, how do we actually just reduce dependence on the individual vehicle in the first place? So I think there's a number of aspects there. The final thing I would say, though, is that there is always a bit of chicken and egg with these things, and I wouldn't simplify it quite as much as this, but there is some parallel with quite quickly the mobile phone solution sort of has kind of revolutionized our lives. But we often didn't wait to see if we could get all of the 3G, the 4G and the 5G infrastructure in place to be able to start taking advantage of that. So I think we'll see little stops and starts where certainly as more people take up electric vehicles, then there'll be more incentive for private companies to put the infrastructure on the street. But in the meantime, we possibly need government and local authorities to help nudge and sort of bridge this period where it's not a more difficult choice for many people to make.
Back to leadership. And I saw Emerson there. You wanted to make a point during what John was saying.
Yeah, I think we need to not always going to be about cars as well. Because something that I've realised and something that I've seen a lot is, let's say, for example, electric scooters or electric bikes. Those also are good ways to get around, and I think that it bewilders me that we always think about cars, and although yes they are the most popular transport, to revolutionize and think about how we make our cars and manufacturers. I think that we need to just simplify it now, and I think, for example, an electric scooter you can just get around and it's quite easy. And I think it's about legalizing and just making rules about them, because if we do this, it just makes everything a bit more easier and everything a bit more, I wouldn't say risk-free, but I would say a bit more, it enables everyone to be inclusive with electricity and getting around.
And I know Belinda wants to come in. I'll bring you in, but I also want to ask you, because we've kind of focused here on our lives, and we let's face it, live in Britain. We're pretty affluent as a country, whereas climate change is going to affect the most vulnerable people on the planet far more significantly than us. John, mentioned we look around the world and you see wildfires, you see floods. Do we focus on the problems that it will cause to the most vulnerable people on the planet enough? And is that something that can move people, motivate them to change? Belinda, I'll let you speak.
Yeah, I think it can, and this is why the UN process is so important, because it's not a problem that one country can tackle alone. But having said that, I think there is a real role for affluent countries such as the UK to show real leadership on this. And to be fair, the UK has shown real leadership on decarbonising its power sector. And but I think our role is to lead by example. We benefited from producing huge emissions during the Industrial Revolution, and we should show how a kind of green industrial revolution can reduce emissions and really play a leadership role in addressing climate change. On the electric vehicles thing, I just wanted to say that the government's expected to announce that the production of internal combustion engine vehicles will be phased out by 2030. And I think that's alarmed some people because it seems quite soon. But actually, many other countries, including India, have set these targets. And all the evidence shows that if you set a target, the technology is there. You need to set that target to get industry to invest. And, the car sector in Britain is going to be hit quite hard by Brexit. But we think there's real potential for us to become a world leader in producing electric vehicles and electric bikes. But you do need that driver from government to make it happen. And time and time again, setting that kind of legal requirements has meant that the businesses, the industry is certain, they invest in that technology, the cost comes down, and everyone wins.
And we just got a couple of minutes left today. So Emerson, I'll just ask you, do you trust the politicians, the policymakers? If we make these agreements, and we've seen, in America, that people can withdraw from the commitments they make, do you think ultimately, if someone says they're going to do something, do you believe that they will actually achieve these goals?
Yes and no. Because it depends how much pressure is on it. Because I feel like if there is a lot of pressure on this one person or this political party to do something, then it's most likely, because then there will be banners and stuff like that, and that is what we don't want to happen. But I think that only if it's tiny pressure, then it's most likely going to happen. So it's a bit of a false promise. So I would lead it down towards the situation and, just how trustworthy they have been in the past.
That feels about where we've come to. It's that people power in making this change, but it might be in terms of protest rather than the changes we can make, because we need government to actually lead on this before we can do anything of significant value. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this morning, but thank you very much for joining us, Emerson, Belinda and John, and thank you very much for everybody at home as well. We've now come to the end of today's Power of Us virtual conference, so a big thank you to all of our amazing speakers and panellists today, and again to all of you for joining us. I hope you're all feeling inspired. One more big thank you to our partner Legal & General as well. Do join us again tomorrow, where we'll have another fantastic lineup, including business futurist Charlie Ang delivering an especially pertinent and insightful keynote speech on how leaders can imagine and transform in the fourth industrial revolution. We'll consider how we all want to live in older age, and we'll be exploring how entrepreneurs are at the heart of progress. So enjoy the rest of your day and see you all tomorrow.